Sam Houston's account of the hidden horrors of the Texas Revolution. If you asked me, before those damn days in the fall of 1835, if I believed in forces beyond human understanding, I would have laughed and asked for another dose of whiskey. But there are things on this earth, especially in the ancient lands of Texas, which make even the most skeptical of men to question everything they thought know about the natural world. My name is Sam Houston, and this is the story of how I faced something much more terrible than Santa Anna's armies. This is the story of Goliad's Whispers. Chapter 1: Lost Messengers. The Texas Independence War was just beginning when the first signs of what was to come. I had established my temporary headquarters in Gonzales, coordinating resistance against Mexican forces. It was October 1835, and the air carried that peculiar smell of imminent storm mixed with gunpowder, a omen that I learned to recognize in my previous campaigns. General Houston. The urgent voice of the young William Travis pulled me from the maps scattered over the makeshift table. Another messenger did not return from Goliad. I raised my eyes, noticing the deep dark circles on the boy's face. How many are now? 3 in 2 weeks, sir. The first was Johnson, then Martinez, and now. He hesitated, swallowing hard. Now my cousin, Robert. I got up, feeling the joints protest damn warfare that never cured completely. Any sign of them? Bodies? Horses? Nothing, Lord. It's like they've been swallowed by the earth. I walked to the cabin window that served as our barracks. Outside, inexperienced recruits practiced military maneuvers in Puerta Square. All too young, all too unprepared for what was to come. Did the messengers follow the same route? I asked. Yes, sir. The old road that goes through the ruins of the Espiritu Santo mission, then follows the gorge to Goliad. Something in the mention of that mission caused me a strange shiver. I knew the stories everyone knew. The mission abandoned after its original inhabitants, the Karankawa Indians, were decimated by disease and conflict. They said the place was cursed, that at night one could hear the corners of the dead. Prepare 2 horses, I ordered. And provisions for 3 days. Travis widened his eyes. You are not thinking of. If our men are disappearing on that road, I need to find out why. And I can't risk sending anyone else. So let me accompany you, General. I denied my head. You need hear, Travis. If something happens to me. I paused, putting my hand on your shoulder. If something happens to me, this revolution will need men like you. Chapter 2: The Ancient Road. I left at dawn, when the fog still clinging to the ground as reluctant ghosts and leaving the world of the living. My horse, a brown Mustang called Cherokee, looked nervous from the moment we took the old road. Animals always know when something is not right. The trip to the ruins of the Holy Spirit mission would usually take noon, but a sense of urgency impeded me ahead. As the sun climbed, throwing elongated shadows over the dusty path, I began to notice disturbing details. There were no birds. In all my trips to Texas, I had never experienced such silence. Not even the wind dared to whisper among the twisted trees that flanked the road. That's when I found the first sign of the missing. A leather bag, thrown on the edge of the way. I immediately recognized belonged to Johnson, the first messenger. I dismantled to examine it. The documents were still inside, intact. No bandit would leave behind official dispatches that could be worth gold to the Mexicans. Cherokee reclenching nervously, and it was then that I noticed the marks on the floor. They weren't ordinary footprints, they looked melted, as if something had dragged the soil with it, leaving irregular trails that disappeared between the trees. I followed the marks for about 50 yards until it reaches a small clearing. What I saw there froze my blood. Symbols. Dozens of them, carved in the trees. It was not letters or pictograms that I recognized, but something older, more primitive. And in the center of the clearing, a perfect circle of blackened land, as if an impossible fire had occurred there, impossible because all the surrounding vegetation remained untouched. It was then that I heard the first whisper. Hashton. Hashton. The voice, if you could call it voice, seemed to come from all directions at the same time. A language I had never heard, but somehow I understood. What was offered? What will be taken? Cherokee packed up, almost knocking me down. I rode quickly and got the horse back to the road. Those whispers, they were not human. And I was absolutely sure that I was alone in that clearing. Chapter 3: The Ruins Speak. I reached the ruins of the Holy Spirit Mission when the sun was beginning to put on. The walls of adobe, half collapsed by time and abandonment, projected sinister shadows on the patio invaded by vegetation. There, at least, I found more concrete signs of the missing messengers. 3 horses, still sealed, fired calmly in what one day was the garden of the mission. But from your nights, no sign. I dismantled and examined the animals. They were well fed, with no signs of struggle or panic. It was as if his owners were simply dismantled and missing. "Where are you, boys?" I muttered, more to myself than waiting for an answer. But an answer came. We are here." Martinez's voice. I recognized her immediately, although he sounded strange, distorted. Came from the interior of the mission. "Martinez!" I shouted, running to the entrance. "Hand on firm, boy. I'm going." The interior of the mission was dark like pitch. I lit a torch and entered cautiously. The air was heavy, loaded with a smell that could not identify, something between incense and burnt flesh. "General Houston." The voice came from the old chapel. I followed the sound, my torch throwing dancing shadows on the walls covered with faded frescoes. But there was something wrong with those paintings. The saints and angels seemed different. His faces were distorted, his benevolent expressions transformed into agony grimaces. In the chapel, I found them. Or what was left of them. Johnson, Martinez, and the young Robert were kneeling before the altar, their heads inclined as if they were in prayer. But as I approached, I saw that his eyes were open, glazed, staring at the void. His mouths moved in unison, repeating those incomprehensible whispers. "Hashtan Kreshta. Volkathnaya. Boys." I shook Martinez by the shoulders. "Wake up. What happened here?" It was then that I noticed your hands. Each held a knife of obsidian and had cut symbols in their own palms. Fresh blood still dripped on the stone floor. The voices stopped abruptly. As a single man, the 3 turned their heads to face me. His eyes. God from heaven, his eyes were no longer human. They were wells without the bottom of absolute darkness. "Sam Houston," said in unison, their voices now a cacophony of thousands of overlapping whispers. "You came. The great warrior. The menon of men. So much war in your soul." I backed away, my hand instinctively seeking the revolver in my belt. "What are you?" I required. "What did you do with my men?" "Your men are here. They have always been here. How you will soon be." The shadows in the chapel began to move, to squirm. Humanoid forms emerged from the walls, spectral warriors with kokars of feathers and war paintings that shone with a supernatural light. Karankawa. The dead warriors of an extinct tribe. "This place is sacred," the voices have continued. "Here, our ancestors made the pact. Blood for protection. Life for power. And when white men came with their diseases and their weapons." The spectral figures approached, surrounding me. The pact demanded payment. Our people died, but the guardian remained. Hungry. Waiting. Guardian? My voice failed. Guardian of what? The 3 messengers rose like puppets pulled by invisible ropes. Their bodies moved unnaturally as they walked away, revealing an opening on the floor behind the altar. A stone staircase that descended into the depths. "Come see, Sam Houston. Come meet the price of the war." Chapter Forged Deep. Against all survival instinct, I went down those steps. I needed to understand what was happening. I needed to save my men if there was still something of them to save. The spiral staircase seemed to have no end. My torch fought against a dark darkness that tried to stifle the flame with each step. The walls were covered with more of those incomprehensible symbols, and now I could see that they pulsed with their own and sickly light. Sounds began to emerge from the depths. They were not whispers this time, but something worse, muffled screams, desperate sobs, the unmistakable sound of battle, steel, musket shots, men dying. Finally, I reached a vast underground camera. And what I saw there challenged all reason. It was a city. An entire city of bones. Towers made of skulls rose to the invisible ceiling. Streets paved with ribs and vertebrae serpent among buildings built with females and tibia. And at the center of this impossible necropolis, a circular pit from which a pulsating red light emanated. My three messengers were standing on the edge of the pit, still on its supernatural trance. Among them, spectral figures of Karankawa warriors formed a circle. I approached cautiously. In the gap, something moved. Something huge. Every bone a life taken at war, the voices whispered. Every skull a fallen warrior. For centuries, we feed the guardian. Aztec, Comanche, Apache, Karankawa, Spanish, French, and now Texan and Mexican. I looked into the pit and immediately wished I didn't do it. There were no words to describe properly. A mass of pulsating darkness, solid and liquid at the same time. Thousands of faces appeared and disappeared on their surface, faces of all breeds and ages, all contorted into eternal suffering. And at the center of this freak, a single red eye, large as a wagon, that turned to staring at me. The weight of that look almost knocked my knees. In an instant, I relived every battle I already fought, every man I killed, every decision that cost lives. The thing in the pit fed this of violence, death, the concept of war itself. Texas is at war, the voices said. The guardian awakens. Blood will call more blood. Death will call more death. Until everything is consumed. No! I shouted, my voice echoing through the bone chamber. I won't allow it. The spectre laughed, a sound that froze the soul. You? You who left your wife? Who abandoned your children? Who has shed so much blood in the name of causes and nations? You are perfect to serve us, Sam Houston. Your heart is already stained red. The words hit me as physical blows. It was true. Each accusation was true. But, yes, I admitted, facing that monstrous eye. I did it all. I carried weapons, led men to death, destroyed lives. But, I straightened my back, feeling a strange clarity invading me. But I also built. I loved. I protected. And if there is one thing I learned in all my wars is that purposeless violence is true evil. The eye blinked, looking surprised. This revolution, I continued, my voice gaining strength, it is not by blood or conquest. It is for freedom. For the chance to build something better. And I will not let an old relic, no matter how powerful, turn our fight into your personal banquet. The creature in the pit rugged, a sound that shook the whole chamber, making bones fall from the walls. The spectre sibilated and advanced. Chapter 5: The Choice. If you don't join us voluntarily, shouted the voices about the deafening roar, then it will be consumed. The spectre thrown over me. Its immaterial form suddenly became terribly solid, spectral claws tearing my clothes, seeking my flesh. I fought like a possessed man, using my torch as a weapon, striking the ghostly forms. But for each one I dispersed, two more came up. It was then that I noticed something. The three messengers, my men, were still real estate on the edge of the pit. His black eyes watched me, but there was something more there now. A spark of recognition? Light. I shouted at them as I defended myself from a spectral warrior. I know they are still inside. Fight against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I saw Martinez's body shake. His lips moved, forming words without sound, Jean, Raul. It was enough. If there was still something human in them, there was still hope. With a war cry I learned from Cherokee in my youth, I threw my torch straight into that demonic eye. The effect was instant and catastrophic. The creature in the pit has convulsed, his roar now transformed into an agonizing winch. The spectre retreated, their forms losing cohesion. And something extraordinary happened. The light of the torch, instead of erasing, spread through the creature's surface as fire on oil. Light! I shouted, understanding suddenly. It's just another shadow. And shadows flee in the light. The three messengers began to squirm, fighting against the entity's control. I saw the exact moment when their human wills resumed control. His eyes lightened, the supernatural black man giving way to white and natural iris. "General!" shouted Robert, the youngest, with his own voice. "What? Where are we?" "Get out!" I ordered it. "Move away from the pit." But the creature would not give up on their prey so easily. Tentacles of darkness emerged from the pit, grabbing the ankles of the three men, pulling them to the edge. Without hesitation, I grabbed Johnson and Martinez, pulling them back with all my strength. Robert, seeing his companions being saved, found the courage to kick the dark tentacles and stagger away from danger. The whole camera began to tremble. Pieces of the bone ceiling began to fall. The creature, wounded by light, was in frenzy, and his suffering threatened to destroy the entire underground complex. "Get out!" I shouted. "Everyone out! Now!" We ran to the staircase as the city of bones crumbled around us. The steps were shaking under our feet, threatening to give in any time. Above us, in the chapel, pieces of the ceiling began to fall. We emerged from the ruins mission at the exact moment when the entire underground structure collapsed with a deafening crash. A cloud of dust and bone fragments gushed from the opening behind the altar, followed by one last, terrible scream of that ancestral thing. Then silence. Epilogue, secrets buried. We sat in the courtyard of the mission, recovering our breath as the sun was born over the ruins. My three messengers seemed stunned, his memories of what had happened fragmented and confused. "What was that thing?" Johnson asked, examining the cuts on his palms with a perplexity expression. "Something that should have remained buried," I said. "A darker relic, when war was worshipped as a deity." Martinez shuddered. "I remember voices, promises of power, guaranteed victory in our battles." "And the price?" I asked gently. "Our humanity," Robert whispered. "Our own soul." I got up, looking at the horizon where the first rays of sunshine tinked the sky red. "The war we face is real, boys. Santa Ana is not an illusion. But we must remember for what we fight, not for the war in themselves, but for what comes after it." "What about that thing?" asked Johnson. "Is she still down there?" I looked at the ruins of the mission, where the entrance to that underground nightmare was now sealed under tons of stone and earth. "I hope so," he said. "And let it remain there. Some fame should not be fed." We set up our horses and started the journey back to Gonzales. We had a revolution to fight, but now I carried with me a knowledge that few men had. There are worse things than lurking armies in the shadows of Texas. In the following years, while leading our young republic through his trials, I always kept a lit candle in my office. Not for sentimentality or tradition, but because I learned in Goliad that some darkness is too hungry to be left without vigilance. And sometimes, on the most quiet nights, when the wind blows from the south, I can still hear those old whispers, hashed on. Hashed on. The price of the war. The price of blood. May God protect us if we ever forget this lesson. End. Reported and transcribed by Samuel Houston, the first president of the Republic of Texas, in 1837. That this document remains sealed until wiser men can understand their warnings.